Hey everybody, I'm just muting my phone so that I don't get interrupted. We'll get started here in a few minutes. We'll get everybody a chance to get logged into the video on YouTube. Make sure that everybody's got everything they need. I forgot a better way to do this camera. All right, that looks better. Okay. All right, it's 12 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to another edition of NDI Presents. This is a Confluence lesson, macros and other cool tricks. My name is Dave Hopkins, and I'll be walking you through this. We're going to do as best we can to get through we've got quite a few macros and other stuff to other cool tricks to get through today. I'm going to try and keep it as close to an hour as possible. I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit less, which would be great, but we'll have to see. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me get the share going to the presentation, which is there. All right, and there we go. Okay, so today's lesson is Confluence macros and other cool tricks. Oh, happy St. Patrick's Day, as you can see by the date on the screen. Okay, so the intention today is to give you guys a good understanding about the macros and what they do, how to use them, and then we're also going to talk about a couple of other components like the sidebar and the page layouts. All right, so there's not a tremendous amount of information to cover as far as how-tos. It's more of a what is this class. So we're going to go through a bunch of the different ones. So a little bit about the macros. Macros help you expand the capabilities of your Confluence pages, right? They allow you to add all kinds of different functionality. The full list of macros I put, as you can see down on the bottom of the page, is a Google shortcut that links you to a page in our Confluence site that has all of the macros that we have installed. There's a couple of examples of them here on this page. You've got the to-dos macro, which is your task list. You've got a Jira inclusion, which shows you the tickets for a project or any filter that you create or any single filter or any single ticket. You can do things like the one on the right side is a table of contents. You can also have pages listed within your site. So those are navigational macros. There's really quite a bit of functionality in the macros in the system. You also have to excuse me. I got a little bit of a cold, so I'll do my best to contain my sniffling. So using the macros is really simple, actually. You include the macro on the page by opening the page into edit mode, placing the cursor where you want the macro, and then selecting the macro from the insert macro and insert more content box. You can also just hit the French paren, the open French paren. That will start the insert macro. There's a macro that inserts the macro. So it'll start the insert macro. I was trying to figure out how to say that easily. We'll walk through how to do those, how to insert it in a few minutes. We got examples for all of this, and rather than switching back and forth, I'm going to do the presentation first, and then I'll go do the examples afterwards. All right. So here's files and images. This is a macro that allows you to include files on your page. So you can include them in an attachments page. You can include, that's just for the single page. You can do it by the attachments, by the entire space. You can do it by a single file. You can do it by a single image. Some cool things about the files and images macro is that you can upload directly into the page. You don't have to go to the attachments window. And when uploading a file by the same name, the previous file will be versioned and the new one will be placed on the screen. So for example, if you have 1-1.jpg, and that puts this picture on your screen, and then you make a modification to this picture and upload it again, you name it the same thing, you just throw it into the attachments page. It'll automatically refresh it on the screen, so you'll have the additions. So you added text or something, and then you'll have 1.1.jpg, and you'll have 1.1a.jpg, or parentheses 1, which will be the version. So it's a really sweet tool. All right. You also have symbols. You can bring up any of the symbols, and the symbols go straight into your page wherever you place them. So you simply just double click on it and it puts it in the page wherever your cursor was. And it's all the standard ones, your arrows and your ampersand and percents and, you know, quarter and half and 3/4. We'll go through how to add all this stuff in a minute, but I just want to, this is the overview of what all is in there. So, all right. Markup is really cool. This is a great macro. I use this one quite frequently. So if you look, when you're editing a Jira ticket, yes, I know that I said Jira ticket, and because we're talking about Confluence here, but when you're editing a Jira ticket, you edit it in Jira's markup language, okay, which is kind of a wiki. It's kind of a wiki markup language. But when you're editing in Confluence, you're actually doing a WYSIWYG type of editor. So the editor in Confluence is more word looking. For example, you have real bullets and you have real numbers and you have real paragraphs and all of that, where in the wiki you don't. So you can actually do your full markup in your Jira ticket, copy it as it would be in Jira, paste it into this macro, and it'll format it and place it into your page for you the way it would be appropriately in Confluence format. So again, I use that one quite a bit. It's a great one. Unfortunately, it doesn't go backwards. You can't select something in Confluence markup and tell it to create it as a wiki markup and then you paste it into Jira. That would be another really great tool I would love, but they don't have that. All right, the next one is the Jira issues filter macro. Now, each of these that I'm calling out, each of these are a macro. So, and like I said, we're going to go through more detail about them in a few minutes, but we're just kind of running a quick overview about them. So the Jira issue filters macro gives you your layout in two positions, two styles rather. You've got a single style, which gives you just the one full length of the ticket itself that you're using. So it gives you the title, the ticket number, what kind of ticket it is based on the icon, and then what its progress is. And these are updated automatically between Confluence and Jira. The by filter allows you to create a filter in Jira and save it, or you can just type in your query, your filter query, directly into the Confluence macro, and it'll pull it dynamically each time. But doing that gives you multiple issues, or however many issues are returned by the result of that filter or query. That's a really handy one to use too, for pulling things like a risk register, for example, or all the stories on your Confluence page. You can show just the epics on your Confluence page. So, and we've got a bunch of these are pre-programmed into the NDI project space template, which is the project space, the Confluence space that we use as the default space for all of the new projects that come out. A lot of these macros are pre-programmed in there, just waiting for the appropriate issue to be created. The appropriate issue filter to be created and linked to them. If you want examples of that, we've got examples in this demo, but I'll also be more than happy to give you access to some of the other projects that we have read-only access to some of the other projects that are already using these, that you can see them active. All right, so highlight and code boxes. These are some of my favorites because these are what makes some of what makes your Confluence pages look more interesting. The highlight boxes are used just for that. They're used to highlight text. You've got the info, the note, which is the exclamation point, the tip, and the warning. And then code example is the one that allows you to have actual physical code and put it into your Confluence page without it being rendered by the Confluence engine or by the browser. It puts it in a pre-formatted area so that it doesn't get rendered, which is very helpful. Another cool thing about the code example one is, let's say that you're only going to include from this H1 to the end of this question mark, right? So you've got the H1 and you're starting the PHP code and ending the PHP code. So you're actually lines 4 through 7. And that's all you paste into the code example. You can start the numbering wherever you want. So you could start, the first number would be 4 and it would end on 7 if that's what we were going to do. So let's say you've got a script file that has, 3,000 lines in it, a pretty substantial piece of code, and you only need lines, 2,512 to 2,514, and you want to paste that element into your Confluence page, you can do it, and the line numbers would be accurate. It's very cool. All right, the next one, the table of contents and the children display. So the table of, and anchor, sorry. So the table of contents, children display, and anchor are all about navigation. So the table of contents allows you to show your table of contents from within a page. Okay, it's a current page only, but it'll do it in 2 formats. If you look at the top format here on the right, it's a horizontal format. So that's more of a menu display. You want it to be short and sweet. You don't want it to be terribly long. Obviously, I'd try and get rid of the colon in there so it looks more like a menu. And you don't want to show children. For example, the vertical standard table of contents display this one is showing children. So you can see that the 020101 is a sub of 0201. But the same type of thing up here, you wouldn't want the children showing in a horizontal. Okay. So the children display collects all the pages specified either by a parent page or within a space, and you can have the number of children just the same as the table of contents macro, and you can also do depth of descendants, same as the table of contents macro. The main difference is that the table of contents macro works specifically on the header tags in your current page. So if you have an H1 and an H2 and an H3, they're going to be nested appropriately. So for example, 0201 would be an H1 or an H2, and 020101 would be the next level below it. So an H3. If this is an H2, this is going to be an H3. That's going to get you your nesting properly. Now, typically what I do when I'm building my Confluence pages is that H1 is the header of the page. It's the page name, really. So when I'm starting my content, I started at H2. That's the highest level within my page data. And then I go 3, 4, 5, and 6 on down as I need to. I don't usually end up with a 4, 5, and 6. I get 2, 3, and 4 at the most. And then you end up with a really lovely table of contents. And again, I'll show you some examples of that. The children display is the same exact layout, only instead of going within a page, it is of the pages within your site, or of the pages from this page down. So for example, the one you see here is all the pages in the training site, okay, in the training space. But I could have it be just the brown bags page, and so all you would see is the brown bags elements and down, and subs of those, children of those. So these are actually pages. Each one of these is a physical page, where on the table of contents, each one of these is a section within a single page. The anchor is a pretty common use thing. You can use it in Word. It works the same in Confluence as it works on the internet in HTML, for example. You create an an A reference to name, and then everywhere you need to call that or link directly to that section, you would do it by a pound reference. So, for example, you'd have, if you wanted to link right to children display, you would create an anchor here using the anchor macro and call it children display. And then to link to that, you would call it, here is my URL, pound children display. All right, we'll go through all of this in more detail in a few minutes. Content embedding, one of my favorites. So content embedding allows you to literally embed any kind of content into your Confluence pages. And that's pretty much any kind of content. You can do everything from Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, obviously. We've got a YouTube widget here. These are your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF. This is an embed showing these same files as links rather than as actual embeds. It's all done by the same macro. This one here is a Twitter embed. You can embed an RSS feed, all kinds of stuff. The really exciting part about it is that there isn't any magic to it. To actually place a embed, a content embed into one of your spaces, all you have to do is grab the URL. In the case of an external site like Twitter, an RSS feed, a YouTube video, you put your cursor in your page and you paste that video, or you paste that URL, and Confluence itself will convert that URL into the widget connector and then embed your embed your link right to it. In the case of a PowerPoint or other Microsoft type of a document, you literally just drag it and drop it. And when you drop it in, Confluence automatically creates the embedded element for it using the appropriate embed macro. To change it to a link, you just click on it. It asks you, and is this a show link only or show video, or show link only or show content? And you tell it show link only or show content. The link down here is one that we're going to go over in a few minutes. It's an example page it's this example page here that shows you all of the embed elements on a Confluence page. All right, the next one. A couple other macros that are good to take note of. The create from template macro. So this macro allows you to create a button, okay, anywhere on your page, anywhere on any of your sites, and link it to one of the page templates that are built into Confluence already. Dozens of them are default. We've created another probably 15, I think, that are NDI specific. A lot of you already use them for stories, creating specific types of test references. There's CMMI information in there. There's tons of stuff in there. We'll go over them in a few minutes, but you can create a button that literally says, click here to create a brown bag training outline, for example. And clicking that button automatically brings up the new Confluence page with the basic template that was created in the templates and blueprints page. So the next one is live search, which puts a search box on your current page that allows you to search from your current page down. And then no comments. If you notice, most of your Confluence pages have comments available on the bottom. If for whatever reason you don't want comments available, you add the no comments macro at the bottom of your Confluence page that you want to disable comments on, and it will do that. It will disable comments. All right, here's a short list of the templates that we have in the system. Now, these are the NDI only templates, or rather, these are only the NDI created templates, and put it that way. So you can see that we've done quite a bit of work already. I need to get a little bit better at my template name versus description, because I think these ones here, they're backwards. The NDI is supposed to be on the template name side. But so we've got change request forms, document type definitions, the brown bag training outline, CM audit criteria, that's a checklist, configuration item checklist, M&A checklists, PMC checklists, PPQA, project calendar template. That one is where we've got an actual Google Calendar linked in to make it easy for you to create a calendar in your own project, a team calendar. Pre-launch checklists, progress reviews, which is a progress report, QA review, status reports, test case template, testing log templates, and user stories. So, and if you want more, if you need one that you don't see here, that you have a template for, let me have it. Send it to me. I'll create a template for it in just a few minutes, and it'll be available not only to you, but to everybody else as well, so that you'll be able to share it within your project or within Confluence as a whole. All right. So configuring the sidebar, there's a couple of really cool things that you can do with configuring the sidebar, and the examples are right here. Every space can have its own custom icon. Okay, so the NDI training and brown bag space, of course, has the NDI icon. I try to go through and put, like, if it's an FAA one, I've got the FAA logo up there. You know, I think I did it for a couple of our projects. And but if you want a custom one, it's just a simple little graphic, and you throw it up there, and it's no big deal at all. It's all found under configure sidebar when you're in this space. The other really good thing to know is that excuse me one second. Pardon me. So the other good thing to know is that you can actually create shortcuts within your space navigation that goes outside of Confluence. So for example, I've got this one right here, and it shows you the outside icon. It tells you that it's a link to the NDI Presents on YouTube, the channel. So we could have links up there. If you look at the Jira issues space, you'll see links to the Atlassian documentation and Atlassian University, which tell you about how to you know, how-tos for Jira and Confluence, that kind of thing. All right, we're rolling along pretty well. Let's see. Okay, page columns and page layouts. So the page layout component is pretty simple. Okay, the columns and rows help you create layouts. If you think about newspapers, how a newspaper lays out its pages, right? So you've got columns, and then you've got sections, and you've got rows. So the page layout tool gives you that same kind of a layout ability. The first thing it does is it gives you a section, and the section can have any one of 6 formats. So you've got full, 50-50. This is like a 30-60. This is 60-30, 30-30-30, and then like 15-60-15. So you end up with these different layouts straight across the page, and then you can have as many of those sections, many of those rows, by adding a new section here. Move that section up or down, or delete it. What it does is it allows you to section your page off horizontally and give you these really clean vertical columns that are predefined by these buttons that you choose, whichever layout you want. But you can have multiple of them. So the first one can be 100, and the next one can be a 50-50, and the next one can be 100, and the next one can be a 30-60, and the next one can be 100. All right, and I'll go through examples of that again when we get in there. The sections and columns macros, though, these are a little different. So imagine yourself in a you've created a section, you've got a 50-50, so you've got your page laid out, and split right down the middle. You got 2 equal columns on each side. On the left-hand side, you want to have 2 more columns, right? So you've got 2 columns of data. So to do that, you add the section macro, which contains 2 column macros. You can have as many column macros in there as you want. So if you added 4, you'd have 4 columns. If you added 5, you'd have 5 columns. You can have as many section macros in there as you want. So in this one, say we've got our 50-50 layout, and in one side we've got 2 sections, each with 2 columns. You'd have 2 sections with 4 columns in it, with 4 columns listed. Now, don't confuse the page layout tool and sections and columns as a substitute for tables. We also have tables, okay? Tables are different. Table is a data presentation. Columns and page layouts, that stuff is the full page layout. It's not about data presenting unless you're thinking data presenting as a whole. So it's about laying out your page to make your page easier to read, more logical. I'll give you some good examples of it as we go on. All right, so that's pretty much it. I'll cover this page again in a second. I'm going to switch over here to the other page. Come on. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and kick that up there. We'll take this over here, that out of the way. All right. So everybody can see my Confluence space. Go ahead and toss that up to the full screen here. All right. So starting back up at the top, we're literally just going to go through everything that we've just discussed all over again, only this time with examples so that you'll be able to see it all. Now, if you look right on this is the brown bag Confluence macros and other tool tricks space, right? This is the NDI Presents Training in Brown Bags space. And under the page brown bags, there's a page called Confluence macros and other tools, other cool tricks. Right at the top, you're going to see here is a to-do, okay, a task. And we're going to check that off because it's technically underway. Here is one of the highlight macros. This one is for note. Here is an embed macro, another embed macro. So this embeds the presentation that you just watched. This one embeds the YouTube video that you'll be able to watch shortly. Here's another macro. This macro is the table of contents macro, and I've got it set to go down 3 levels. Another macro. This macro is the information highlight, which just links you to the NDI Presents YouTube channel. All right, on this side, I have a written outline of this class. And for each of these, this is an H2, this is an H3, which is how this gets created. H2, H3, 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 H4. These will all be H4s, H3, H3, H2. Okay? Everybody with me so far? So let's look at this page. And the next thing you're going to see is these dotted lines. These dotted lines are the layout. So if we click right here, the page layout, you'll see that this one is a 50-50. There's the line right there for 50-50. If I click in the next one, okay, that's this section here, you'll see it changed to the 60-30. Okay, if I want to flip it to the 50-50, you just click 50-50 and now it's 50-50. There's a 30-60. Put it back to 60-30. Okay. If we add a new one, add a section, you'll see it just came in on the bottom. And I can make it any of the section areas that I want. So here's some data, here's some data, here's some data. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close that for a second just so I don't end up saving the changes. And I'm going to open it back up again. And we're going to go look at some of the configuration for some of these macros. All right, so when you pop in a highlight macro, you type right into the screen on the macro. Okay, you don't have to open the macro to type in it. When you click on the macro, your options are edit and remove. You edit. All you're really editing is the title, and you don't have to show the title if you don't want to. So if you leave that out, you'll see it takes that out. If you take the highlight or the icon off, then you end up with just a yellow box. Okay. REMEMBER. There we go. And refresh that again. All right. The table of contents macro, same thing. Edit or remove. We're going to edit. You have a couple of different styles. Your flat gives you your menu style, but you see how it's including all the sub components. And if you don't want that, you have to drop it to just one level. And now it looks like a normal menu. Okay, list brings it back to the vertical. And then if we say 2, it takes it to the next level. And I like 3 on my table of contents. You can say, for example, don't include heading 1. Okay, if I don't include heading 2, then it's going to drop. It's not supposed to drop everything. Oh, I have to put an RE in there. Yeah, I'm not going through that to write the RE. You can also determine your, if you want to add a custom class, and if you want it to be an absolute URL for each of these, rather than a reference URL or a relative URL, with the relative URL, you can't just right-click, copy, and paste it somewhere else, but you can with an absolute. So if you need to borrow it, it's helpful to right-click and send it off. So your style just changes this from a disc to a square to a circle. It overwrites any CSS if you have it specified. All right. Once you start dropping in your content embed macros, you get fewer options. Your options are really just size or show as link. If you click show as link, it'll then tell you to show as thumbnail. With your widget connector, there's more configuration because you can actually set the size and width of it, the height and width of it, as well as you'll need to paste in the URL somewhere. All right, this is another one of the edit macros. And then all the rest of this stuff is just text. Okay, this is all just text as it's built. Links that are standard links. So with the nice thing about the content of the table of contents one too is that it does the internal linking automatically for you. So let's look at the files and images macro from an example page. So here's an example page of it. Okay, so this first list gives you file attachments that are on this page. And you can see it also gives you the ability to drag and drop right to it. So if you have another file, you can literally just drag it right over here, drop it in this box, and it'll add it to the list, which is the same list, by the way, as coming up here to the 3 dots for any page and choosing attachments. Okay. You see it's the same list. To attach files, you drop them into the little box. It throws them up here automatically. And they get versioned as you go. You can also upload one at a time. If the newfangled file attachment doesn't work, you can use the old-fangled one. This I have found very helpful too. Download all. Boom. And it comes down. If you expand it, you can get the versioning for each of those files. I don't think I've created a version in any of these, but that's where your versioning is. And if you need to rename a file, you can do that right here in the actual file. So obviously, as you saw, files can also be tagged with labels. All right, so having a file list on your front page is kind of helpful if you need to do any kind of an archive or artifact attachment, something like that, that is a page that is just artifacts, or you can have a description at the top and then more content that says here are some, here are the artifacts associated with blah, blah, blah. Your space attachments is the same kind of thing, only instead of just doing one page, it does every page in your space. You can filter it by extension or by label. And when you're creating it, you can tell it only do these pages or only do this space. Then if we go down a little further, pictures of my dogs because I needed content. So yeah, everybody all at once. Ah. So anyway, this is a single image element, and then this is the gallery element. So the gallery element throws all the pictures up on the screen at one time. If the screen is too small, it will, trying to get my browser to move here. It will put the, why isn't that? There we go. It will put the scale, the scrollers in there for you automatically. Okay. So let's look at how these are created. So edit. And the first thing you're going to see again is the page layout. So this first one is a 100%. The second one is a 100%. Looks like they all are. Yep, they sure are. All right. The second one's a 100%. And then here's the attachments macro. So we edit. You can see I didn't specify any file name patterns, but if I had star.jpg, preview, it'll only show JPG files. Okay. You can comma separate that list and have anything in there you want. It does also do regular expressions. So you could say, for example, star.jpg and then put an RE in here that that accounts for the E. That might do it. No. I need work on my regular expression, clearly. So anyway, you could set the regular expression up to pick up, let's say if you had things in this directory that were other than JPEGs, but you only wanted the JPEGs or the JPEGs, you could do that. All right. Include the old attachment versions. That gives it in the drop-down list for each of the files. If you shut that off, it just shuts that off. Sort by date, sort by ascending order. These are the defaults. They can be changed as you are moving around in the actual file itself. All right, the space attachments macro is pretty simple. You just put the space name in there. If you don't include the space name, it will assume the current space. But you can put any space name in there you want, provided the viewer has to have access to that space or he won't see anything. All right, and then another page section, and then this one is a single image where you just come right here, you choose insert files and images, choose the image you want to insert, boom. Okay, it gives you the default. You can go make it smaller, make it medium, make it large, or set it back to its original. I think it was probably a medium. Whether or not you want a border and whether or not you want it linked to someplace else. The page properties gives you the alt text and the title. Now, these are cute, but they don't always work. So use at your own risk. Okay. And then the last one is the gallery. If you look, I did something a little different in the gallery. Oh, I guess not, because the gallery, even though it's in its own section, I was thinking that I might want to put another header, but the header is actually in its own layout. So the gallery, if we look at the gallery, you can give it a title if you want. Dave's dogs, preview it. And so number of columns, images to exclude if you don't want any, but that's by file name. It only includes certain images. So it's all stuff to play around with. You can sort them by default. And then you save and then preview. And let's go look and see what that did to Dave's dogs. It just threw Dave's dogs right there up in the front. All right. So there we go. Any questions on how any of this works so far? That's our new puppy, Harriet. All right. So on to the next one. The Jira issues filter. Okay, so the Jira issues filter, as I said, it gives you the display of Jira issues in two formats: single or by filter, by issue filter. And so for the single, you just type in the name of the file, okay, and you don't even have to have key equals. You can just type in the name of the file, and it will find it and pop it in there for you. Or you can type in an actual filter. You can also type in an actual query. But I find using the filters is easier because then when you need to change the filter, you can go and change the filter and it affects automatically all of your stuff. There's a bunch of display options down here, which are how many maximum to return and what fields you want returned from them. So you can customize the fields that gets returned. All right, so that's that one. Close that one out. And highlighting code boxes. These are fun because they really do help how your code looks. And we'll talk. I'll show you this one again. So we said if we only include that part of it, right, and then we say that's all that we're including, and then edit that guy, and we can start the first line number at 4 or 44 or 54 or whatever we want to. It also does, based on the code that you've typed in, you can give it the color scheming. So, and it'll change the color scheming based on what kind of code you've typed in. So, of course, the PHP one that I found was a pretty insignificant piece. So it really didn't show a lot of coloring, but you can see there is a little coloring in there. So anyway, we throw that down there and then we hit save. And when you look, you're now looking at 4 through 7 of the code, which is very handy. I really like that feature. It's a great feature for this tool. So again, creating one of these is pretty simple. You can either start, here is some text, okay, highlight it, and then insert your highlight. It selects the text that you've got selected, and then you say, boom, and there it is. It's that simple. Now, if you decided that you want a different one, you can select, come up here, type in high, it'll show you the highlight elements and choose a different one. Boom. Now it's the warning. So it's pretty easy to do. When you look, there it is. Here is some text and test. Excuse me. Oh, my stars. All right. So there's that. Okay. Expand is a fun one. Oops. Didn't mean to close that. Excuse me. Oh, pardon me. Oh. So let's say you've got a big old pile of text that you don't want to have to take up all this room on your screen. This is a log file from one of the functional tests that we're running on a project right now. And so I wanted to include the log file, but I don't want to have to look at it every time I open it up. So you can actually use the click to expand macro, which is this guy right here. And I threw it inside of a code block macro. So I have the code block macro loaded into the content of the click to expand macro. And the click to expand macro is doing the shrinking and expanding for me. And when you look at it, you just give it a title, and it's whatever you want it to be is going to be right there. And then that's just basically how it's going to function for you. Now the code block macro, that's same one as over there. You can show the line numbers and all of that, start first line number and stuff. It actually has a collapsible component in it. So I'm kind of cheating by using the click to expand one, and I didn't do that for any particular reason at all. The intention was to demonstrate the click to expand macro, but the code block macro, again, it has that functionality built into it. So and it comes up looking like this. Here's an example of the log file, and then click to expand. But it's the only other macro that does that. If you want to use click to expand in something like navigation or any other kind of content, then you need to use the expand macro, which is why I used that in the first place. All right, so that's that. Okay, the content embed macro, which we saw a little bit of earlier. So this is your YouTube embed, and it'll play right from it. Okay. So as you can see, it plays right through the screen. The same with your Twitter connector. It'll play right through if it's got anything to play. Your Word, Excel, PDF, PowerPoint, they actually open into a preview mode, which is kind of cool. And that preview mode allows you to scroll through. Up here in the corner, you can download, upload a new version, review comments. Same thing with, that was the PDF. Same thing with your PowerPoint, Excel, and Word. And then these here are the same as these, only displayed as an icon. I mean, as a link. So if we click on it, show as a thumbnail, and it becomes a thumbnail. Click on it, show as a link, and it becomes a link. So that's a very handy feature. And you can see again, here is the page layout macro in a 50-50. Here's another 50-50, and then here's a 30-30-30. All right. I think we've only got one or two more to do here. Yeah, the other macros of note, which is your brown bag training outline, your live search, and your no comments. And you can see the no comments. Here's the no comments macro, which does not display on the page, right? It doesn't display on the page. But what it does, if we delete it, you'll see, remove, that, ooh, I think I have to save. Yeah, that now we have a comments box. But if we don't want the comments box, again, typing the French paren open starts the macro line. And then if you know the macro name, you just start typing and it'll start coming up. So no comments. And I just say, Dave says no comments. Doesn't really matter. COMMENTS. Doesn't really matter what you put in there. And then save. And you have no comments. Your live search, you can restrict it to a space. If you're restricting it to a space key, you need to have that space key in advance. So to get the key for your particular space, you go, there we go. Click on this guy. I'm sorry, click on this guy, overview, and your key is right here. Okay, it's also listed right here. Should be listed right here. So you'll be able to find it all kinds of places, but the most obvious place is on the Space Tools page, the overview page. So NTBB is the NDI training in brown bags. So if we come back over to other macros of note, edit the live search, limit it to NTBB. And that's that. Now, it defaults, I think, to All spaces, yeah, if not specified, all accessible spaces are searched. You can also restrict it to label to specific labels if you want to only find. So, for example, if you have the live search on a page that you are using to categorize meeting minutes, and every meeting minute page under there, you have a label on it that says meeting minutes. You could actually type meeting minutes in your restrict to labels, and it'll only search the meeting minutes within that page, which is very handy if you want to say search through the meeting minutes on a handy little filter. I mean, a handy little search tool. All right. So there's that. We're going to save that. Now, if you look, this page actually does not have a page layout. Okay. The entire page is just one section. So it is not a page layout. All I did was create lines, and then this is simply an HR. It's just a horizontal rule, that right there. So that's all that was. But the actual page itself does not have a page layout. So let's say we wanted to do this page with a page layout, and I want 3 sections, and I want the HRs to be full, and I want the comments elements to be in there. So we're going to start creating areas here. You can see the areas coming in. I'm going to take my HRs out. Okay. And in the first one, let's see, in the last one here, I'm going to put the no comments on the bottom, paste. In the next one, I want my HR. In this one, I want my live search, cut, and actually, let's not do that. Let's put the live search in this top one on the right, paste, because that's where it usually goes. And then we don't need that space then, so we're going to remove that section. Oops, didn't mean to remove my HR. And now save that. And we have our create from template, our live search, and our no comments, and with that single HR, only now we've got them in a nice clean layout. So I can also then, I want it over to the right a little further, and we just go, boom, make it over to the right. Okay. All right, so that's that page. Now the page layout page is the biggest and most complicated page. So we've covered a lot of it already in how the sections work. But now we're going to talk a little bit about how the columns and rows work. Okay, so as you see, I've got a lot of Lipsum in here, and it's actually provided by Bacon Ipsum, which is one of my favorites to use, which is why we're using the Bacon Ipsum title picture there. All right, so we have in the layout, we have a 60-30, okay? From the page layout window, we have a 60-30, which gives you this right sidebar area. And you can see I just threw a bunch of Lipsum in there. And then in the main section, I've created a section. And inside of that section, I've created 2 columns. Okay, 1 column, or 3 columns. I'm sorry, there's the third. I've widthed those columns to 33%, which is the only option you can do with them. And then I just put a bunch of Lipsum in there. This one's got the little picture in it. Okay. And then I put another 100% layout, a section, and then I put another, it's a 15, 60, 15 section, which just has standard text in it. So if we look at how this first section lays out differently than the bottom section. So I have the 60-30 here with 3 separate sections, and I told it to turn the borders on just so that it would be easier to see them. If we come up to, come on, scroll. Hello. There we go. If we come up to the section and we make it a 50-50 without changing anything else, you'll see that we're now 50-50, and our 30-30-30 or 33-33-33 is actually of the 50% rather than of the 60%. Now, one thing that I'm going to do right here, I'm going to put a 3x3 in here. So test data, more, and I'll just grab some doink, doink. Okay, and then I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to call this, we're going to call this 70 and 30. Save. Okay, so again, looking a little differently at how the columns and pieces work out, it'll make more sense to have that one 70 because it's got so much text in it, and that one 30. So all three of these tools just give you the ability to lay out, like I said earlier, think about a newspaper, gives you the ability to lay out your newspaper really well, to organize your data really well, to make there not be any questions about what is with what looks for what kind of data you're presenting versus what kind of information. So all the way around, these are just three separate tools. They do similar things, but not the same. So if you have any questions about those, go ahead and type them in. Otherwise, I think we're pretty close to done. The last page I want to pull up real quick. This is my personal space. I'm going to jump to my automated testing page here, because this has a good example of how properly laid out data is very easy to read. So this is the DRS project. I'm sure you're all familiar with it at this point. Here's two macros right here. Okay, you have the information macro with the table of contents macro sitting in it, right? So it's got, if we look at it, it's the table of contents macro inside of an information macro, and I have an anchor to the top so that everywhere as I go, I have a link to top. You can see that right here. And so this 3-column layout on this section is just, here's some generic links, here's some generic information, here's some generic attachment information. Then we've got test record information. So what I have is here's a macro to the ticket itself and its status. Here's all of the info that's associated with it. And on this side is the results. Down the middle is any kind of special content that I might need to include. For example, this layout regression test has a warning. Okay, so or a note that says, no, that's a warning. It says this has not been identified and has therefore not been tested. Test results, stuff like that. So anyway, you can see that by using a proper layout, right, by laying the information out, using those tables and those columns and those sections and all of those pieces all really make the information so easy to read. Having the call outs in the right places, all of that stuff. It just makes it all so easy to read. Here's an expand source that I've used in here to track. And again, this is the code element, right? Which has a built-in expand source to track the API call, the API endpoint that doesn't need to be shown every time because it's just going to take up so much space. So, all right. That pretty much handles the entire presentation. If anybody's got any questions. Why is it All right, there we go. So if anybody has any questions, I'll give you another couple of seconds to post them. We're almost at 1 o'clock. And I know it's a lot of information, and I hope I covered everything well. And as usual, if you need any more information, go ahead and give me a buzz. I'm here for you. And I'm going to show the last 2 pages of the slideshow so that you guys can catch the. So there's the more information on page layouts, columns, and sections. I know that's the biggest component that we covered. And of course, Bacon Ipsum, which I just love that site. Here is the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, which is NDI Presents. And here's the information for this particular course. It covers the Confluence page for this outline that we just worked through, and then this page right here is the entire Confluence space. There is a ton of lessons up there. There's a ton of classes and information up there. So if you need anything regarding some of these courses, please by all means let me know. And we're starting to look for more content, people. So if you have ideas about anything that you would like to see as a brown bag, bring them up. Let me know. Send me an email. Put it on the Confluence space. There is a section at the bottom of the NDI training and brown bags Confluence space called Training Ideas. Just add it to the comments of that page. And if I can't teach it myself, which, I don't know everything. So if I can't teach it myself, we will find someone who can if we have to bring in outside people. So that's how committed we are to this training exercise, and we hope that it's being helpful to everybody. So thank you very much for watching, and this will be out on YouTube in about 20 minutes. So what it takes to get it out there. So thank you very much, and have a great day, guys. Happy St. Patty's Day.